Hello everyone, it's Lindsay, and today I'm sharing another scrapbooking layout with you guys, and I'm using a bunch of products from Felicity Jane, mostly the items from this month's kit, which is Jenny, but I'm also using some Elizabeth and then just some past kits as well. Now, if you follow me on Instagram, I shared our recent bear encounter camping story over there on a live a couple weeks ago, but not everybody caught the live, and I told you guys that I'd come back and do a process video documenting some photos from our trip and share that story with you guys. So this process video, I'm not going to explain a whole lot of what I'm doing as I do the voiceover. I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of information beforehand and then tell you the story, and I'll probably leave a lot of the stuff that I normally edit out into here just so we have time to share the story. So what I've done off camera ahead of time is I printed out the two photos that I'm going to be using. We were supposed to be camping for about 4 days. We were only there 12 hours, so I don't have a whole bunch of photos. I just have one photo that we took in the afternoon and then a photo of the bear aftermath, and so I'll be documenting those. I've printed these out into 3x3 size. I am documenting on an 8.5 by 11 layout, which is something I've been doing for a few months now. I have this cut file that I cut using my Silhouette Cameo machine, and this was just a geometric file that I found in the Silhouette store. This is not a Felicity Jane cut file, but I do have some Felicity Jane stars over here that are in the Silhouette studio. These are actually a Christmas file, I think from a few years ago, but I went ahead and cut a whole bunch of those out of some different patterned papers, and then cut the bear out of the white Essentials cardstock from Felicity Jane. This is also the white cardstock from Felicity Jane. And then I took a whole bunch of different black and white pattern papers from Felicity Jane. So a lot of them are from this month's kit. Now over on the blog post that goes along with this, I will have links to every one of the paper packs that I used in case you're wanting to match what I use. But basically I just went through my entire stash of Felicity Jane papers, and most of the papers have a neutral back side. So the B side is usually a black and white pattern or a neutral pattern. Some of these are some of the 6x6 papers, but I just went through and picked a whole bunch of them and cut out the pieces that are going to back my bear cut file, and I cut about 1 million of these, so I can probably do like a dozen bears with all the pieces that I cut, but I wanted to give myself plenty of options. That way I could kind of pick and choose the different patterns to back the bear. And I wanted to do this project because I wanted to document these photos, but I know with the Jenny kit this month, for the month of August, it is a birthday themed kit because it is the birthday for Felicity Jane this month. And so a lot of the projects that you're going to see this month are going to probably be birthday themed or super bright and cheerful, you know, all the bright colors that are included in the kit this month. But I wanted to challenge myself to take a themed kit like this and do something completely different than what the theme is. So I'm not going to use any of the birthday elements. I am going to use some of the flowers, I think, from the stamp set. And I'm going to pull some of the more neutral blacks and whites and the yellows and really make this feel like a totally different vibe than the kit in its entirety. That way you can kind of see how far these kits will stretch, and that you don't have to just use them for bright, cheery, girly, feminine, summery, you know, projects, that they can be a little more masculine and neutral and things like that. So I'll show you how I make that work. But I pulled out the stamp set, I pulled out lots of different stickers that I have in my stash, and everything that I use will be linked down below for you guys. I probably pulled out more than what I'm actually going to use, but I just wanted to give myself plenty of options. So I am going to just apply some adhesive to the back of this and start attaching all the little pieces and put the layout together. So let me go ahead and put you on fast forward and we will get this all put together.
Okay, I should start by saying that I have been camping since I was a kid. So over 20 years I've been camping, and I frequently camp with my boys. They are 11, they'll be 12 in a few weeks. We camp by ourselves all the time when my husband works, and we're just comfortable with it. We're used to it. And so we headed out to the Sequoia National Park, and we have one of our favorite campgrounds up there. We've camped there before, and we were all settled in. We'd had a wonderful afternoon riding our bikes and eating ice cream and getting all settled in for 4 days of camping. But it was really, really hot. So I had everything in the bear box, because when you camp in areas like that where there are bears, they have what are called bear boxes. If you're not familiar with camping and hiking, it's these big metal lockers basically, and you have to put all of your food items, but not just your food items, things like toothpaste and soap and anything that's scented has to go into that bear box at all times. But it was super, super hot. It was in the high 80s. So I pulled our cooler up against the tent in the shade and was leaving it there until the evening when I would put it in the bear box. So we were just going about our day. We'd gone into the tent to play Monopoly and got all caught up in the game. And I'd meant to have the boys help me lift the cooler into the bear box, and I just completely forgot to put the cooler in the bear box. So we went ahead and went to bed about 10 o'clock, and about 11 o'clock, I am woken up from a dead sleep to the sound that people who have had bear encounters describe as snorting, huffing, just this very large animal noise, and I can hear something getting into the cooler, which was at this point only about 18 inches from my head, just outside of the tent. And so it took me a few minutes to realize what exactly was going on. And when I realized that there is in fact a bear tearing apart my cooler just outside of my tent, I'm sure when you have never had a bear encounter, you may have an idea of how you would deal with that and what you should do. But when you're in the moment, you kind of forget all of those things. And I just want to preface that, like, there are so many little God moments in the story. It is just amazing because I get up from the bed quietly because I don't want the bear to hear that we're in the tent, and I go over to the boys in the back part of the tent and wake them up as quietly as I can. Just tell them, hey, boys, there's some big animal out in our campsite. We got to get out of the tent. And so I'm like frantically trying to rip open the back of my tent so that we can escape out the back of the tent. Now, I typically put my car keys into my kitchen box and lock it in the bear box just so that they're hard to find, so nobody can steal my car while we're there, and I also don't lose them. That way I know that they're always in that kitchen box. But this time, for some reason, I had put them in the tent with me, so I was able to grab my keys, use my car keys to rip a hole through the back of my tent, which is one of the photos that you'll see on this layout, and then told the boys, let's get out of the tent. You need to run to the bathroom, which we only happen to be about 3 campsites from the bathroom. So we are barefoot in pajamas, running away from the tent, and get in the bathroom, lock the door, and we're on the men's side of the bathroom. And I'm like, well, great, now what are we going to do? It's 11 o'clock at night. We can't spend the night in the bathroom. And so I kind of peek my head out, and I can hear that it's still over in the campsite, but I can't see anything. And so another gentleman actually comes over to the bathroom. And so I'm telling him, like, oh my gosh, at this point I'm like crying and freaking out. I'm like, there's a bear in my campsite, and I totally forgot my cooler. I'm so sorry. Like, what do we do? And another God moment. So this campground actually has about 200 campsites. It's huge, and it's totally packed full of people. And we just happened to be camping directly across from the resident park ranger that stays there in the park. So we go over, me and this other gentleman, we leave the boys in the bathroom. We go over to the ranger's trailer. We're, knocking, wake him up. Like, oh my gosh, there's a bear, in my campsite. And at this point, the gentleman that's with me kind of turns and is looking at my campsite. And he's like, oh, there's a bear. It's looking at us. I can see it. It's huge. There's a big bear in your cooler. And so the ranger walks into my campsite, and he just nonchalantly just walks up to the bear, tells the bear, go away, bear. And the bear takes off up the hillside, and I am just a frantic mess and terrified. And now I've got, my campsite's all destroyed. There's food everywhere. It's ripped the lid off the cooler. And so the other gentleman's helping me like put everything in the cooler. And as we're putting everything away, he looks up, and the bear had actually come back down the hillside and was about 10 feet away from us, trying to get back in the campsite to get more food. So the ranger, kind of helped get everything in the bear box. And, I indicated that we would be leaving, even though it's 11 o'clock at night. I was like, we're going to head down the hill. We only live about 2 hours away. And he was kind of surprised. He's like, well, you need to face your fears. If it comes back, you just yell at it, which I know that you just yell at them, make big noises, make yourself look big, and they'll go away. But when you're all by yourself in the middle of the night with your 2 children, running to the bathroom and hiding seems like a way more logical way to deal with a bear in your campsite. And so as we're walking around, we can kind of see that he'd torn apart some other things in my kitchen area that were just like paper plates, no food scented items, but it was just, other things that were in my campsite. And so he did say that he figured the bear would come back into the campsite looking for more food again. Of course, my boys were completely traumatized, so we loaded up the car, headed down the hill. We got home about 1 a.m. My poor husband had the next day off, so he got to traipse back up the hill with us the next day to tear down camp, put everything away. When we got back up to the campground the next day, we had to give a full report to their bear tech team. So they have an entire team of people who stay at the campground 24/7 and patrol the campground for things just like this. And so you can actually be fined and ticketed for an incident like this because there are, signs. It is a national park. You're supposed to have all your stuff locked up, but thankfully they did not write us a ticket. They did indicate, that they were going to have to track the bear and catch it. And then they kind of haze it. They spray it with some things and kind of just traumatize it while it's in the campground so that it doesn't want to be in the campground. And then they take it away from the campground. They'll tag it, collar it, all that good stuff. And so the ranger actually said that this bear was not a tagged bear, so it wasn't one that they had caught before. And it was one of the larger bears that he has seen in that campground. So we just felt super bad because it was a complete mistake. I've shared on my channel before, I did have a couple of strokes a couple years ago. And so my memory is not 100% all the time. And my boys are usually really good about helping me remember little things, and they're very, very helpful when we're camping, but it was just a complete accident, mistake. It was an oops. Everybody was fine. And as we were headed down the hill, I made a comment to the boys about, I can't believe this happened. I was sitting there, specifically just praying that we would be safe and that everything would be okay. And Aiden turns to me and he's like, Mom, he's like, God did protect us. Like all it got was our food. Like we didn't get hurt. The ranger was right there. We were able to get out of the tent. Like all these things that totally worked out and none of us got hurt. We just got all of our food eaten. Really was, really could have been a lot worse than it was. And so needless to say, the boys are not looking forward to any camping trips anytime in the future. So I'm hoping by next summer they will kind of get over it. I did, when I first shared this story on Instagram, some people have made some comments about, maybe that's why I don't go hiking, or that's why, I'm nervous about camping, or I don't like to go camping by myself. And so I just wanted to share the story, not for the drama and all that aspect of it, but just as a teachable moment that, you don't have to be afraid to go out and go camping. There's a lot of you single moms or women who have husbands at work. Don't be afraid to take your kids out and go camping. We love it. We've never had an issue. Like I said, I've been camping for over 20 years, had never had anything more than like raccoons getting into my stuff. And really it just comes down to, being smart about it, making sure that all your stuff's locked up. In the future, I will be packing an air horn and bear mace and, a few of those other things that I maybe hadn't thought of before. We'll definitely be making some changes in that aspect. Trying to camp in a campsite that's, close to people. The campsite we were in, I love because it's kind of away from everybody and it butts up against the forest. We won't be doing that again. And just some, small details like that. But it definitely has not ruined camping for us. It is a story that we will remember forever and ever. And that's something I shared on the blog was that, the photos that I have from this day aren't great, perfect, beautiful Instagram worthy photos, but it's definitely a story that I wanted to document and tell in a creative way. And so don't let bad photos stop you from documenting your stories, because, doing this with just some crummy photos and, a big, bold cut file and things like that, and just really documenting the story is what it's about. And so I really wanted, this to be something that we remember. I hate that this had to happen, but I am kind of thankful because I know for the rest of my children's lives, they will be conscious about, being careful when they're in nature and respecting, nature and the animals that are out there. And, it's just like going to the beach and there being a shark. Like, you are in their territory. I don't fault the bear. I feel really bad now because it does jeopardize the bear. Once they get a taste for people food, they have a tendency to want to keep coming back to the campground, and they will actually kill the bear if it becomes a nuisance and becomes an issue. So I really do feel bad that happened, but you know, accidents happen, things happen, and everybody was okay, and it turned out okay, and we have a story to share. So as I'm putting together this layout, I know I didn't kind of talk about the process, but I'm wanting to leave myself some room at the bottom here to type out a little bit of the story. I'll probably go and add some more details on the back of the layout. That's something that I've done in the past, is added, you know, story details and things to the back of my layouts. That way I have it documented. But behind the bear, I just smushed some Distress Oxide inks in pumice stone and tumbled glass, and added some ink splatters, you know, added some of those torn paper strips. I did add some stitching detail, and then came in with those little stars. And then here I'm adding some stamping. Really, it's a very simple layout, and I really love how it came together with some of the more neutral color tones, and that bear file just kind of being a focal point. This is also a great way to use up your scraps of paper if you've got little bits and pieces laying around. This is a great way to use those up. Here I'm just adding some stamping just to kind of bring in some more pink, since I had added some pink behind the photo and there was some pink in that tent photo. But there you can see a photo of the hole that we cut in our tent. But there is a look at the finished layout. If you want to see more close-up photos and information about how it came together, definitely check out the blog post over on Felicity Jane. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave those down below. Check out the description box for links to everything that I used today. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. And until next time, thank you so much. Bye-bye.